All right, welcome to Meeting of the Minds. Today we got Lafaurie with us from Occidental College. We're going to talk through a little bit of the mental side of the sports and what they're doing over there at their program. So, Rod, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jake.
Of course. Now, start off with just kind of like a little bit of an elevator pitch on, what you guys are doing at Occidental, how things are going and what that program's like.
Yeah, it's been great. Firstly, I've been here for now 10 years, so I've seen the program really rise, from the ashes. I mean, the first year that I inherited the program, it was not in a great place. So to say the least, what we've done is been rewarding. So for us, how we've been able to kind of climb the ladder and become one of the top teams in our conference and one of the top teams on the West Coast in Division III really is in large part because of the mental part and the mental game. And what I've realized through the coaching career is how important it is to touch human beings as people and help them understand, how important the mental side of it is. And obviously, we've gotten better players throughout the years, but I think just helping everybody and become better people, because that really what happened probably after like my second or third year. I just kind of realized, that probably is too long maybe, but after that second or third year, I remember, this has to be about our men and helping shape to become better men. And once that became focused, we started focusing on how do you make that better men. We started this rise and get into the playoffs and become relevant and all these things. But, it's really just about helping these men find their goal in the future, So it's been fun. We talk a lot about life, a heck of a lot more than soccer in some cases, and I love it. So that's what we've been able to do at Oxy, and it's been fun.
Oh, that's great. We often focus on performance over outcome. And I think the same thing is true when it comes to coaching young people. If you focus on just making a great person, the outcome that you want, it's not guaranteed, but it's much more likely to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what we found is that, because we want them to become better business leaders, better leaders, better husbands, better fathers. And what that does is it makes them better teammates because they have to learn responsibility and accountability and all of these other parts of the puzzle. And it helps them become fitter into preseason because they know they're responsible. Part of being an adult is being responsible and all those things. So, because of the philosophy that we have, it's translated to success, and once people know that the coach cares about them, they're going to do everything they can to help that coach and become better, that nobody cares. I think it's somebody, certainly there's probably a lot of coaches that have said it, right? But until they know how much you care, nobody cares what you have to say. So now it goes into caring for them too. And that's been huge.
Yeah. As an educator, I always went with the quote, if there's no significant relationship, there can be no significant learning. And, I think that's basically what you're describing, as a coach. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that. And, if you look at the best coaches, they care a lot about their athletes. And I think sometimes people get confused between caring about individuals and athletes and still not having the desire to be competitive. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you balance having that strong relationship, but still holding athletes to a high standard?
Yeah. We talked about it when meaning my coaching staff 7 years ago, about like, well, so do we just want to be happy, hold hands, but be 0-20 every year? And it's like, well, wait, that wasn't it either, right? It can't just be like, well, good try, everybody, we'll do our best. And if we don't win, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive to care about an individual or be successful on the field. So, what we've been able to manage to do within our program is we operate in expectations, and, we talk about being a conditional family. So, you have to still pull your weight in that family. You still have to show up ready. You still have to show up with expectations of what your job looks like as well. Doesn't mean we won't care about you. We're always going to care about you, but it helps when they understand and have clear expectations. So because of that, they work together. The more love, the more care that we show, it supercharges the results. We found like literally, and we talk about this as well, is we say and this is from, Jeffrey Marks was the writer of The Season of Life with Joe Ehrman. And he was talking about like if an alien came to watch a practice or watch a game, they would think that soccer was just about love and brotherhood and caring. and, they wouldn't even know that much. It was just about the game. And so, because we do that, the guys give more because there's a bigger cause. It's not about them anymore. And, you move it towards the team. And that's what, again, helps us win more, to be honest. The more we care, the more they win. I mean, it's crazy. And it's not like we're not faking how much we care about them. We love them, and that just makes it easy and genuine. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they actually work together.
I would agree. I would agree entirely. One of the lessons that we're big on is what we call accountability buddies, which is basically you figure out what are the areas that I need to grow as a person, as a student, as an athlete, and realizing that like I as an individual am weak. Right? Like we are all our worst enemy at times. And if I can create a system around me that helps me do better and helps hold me accountable, it is easier to follow through with that growth and that change that I'm looking for. And having somebody else that's going to help hold me accountable, whether it's a coach, whether it's, a teammate when you're younger, maybe it's a brother or a parent, but having somebody that's going to help hold me accountable, not as in a, negative way of yelling at me or getting mad if I don't do it, but like, that encouragement of like, you said you're going to do this. I care about you. I care about your result. And this is something that's going to make you happy and better. So like, please get this done. And I'm going to help remind you of why you're doing this.
For sure.
So so accountability is super important on teams, making sure that people live up to the standards that they're setting for themselves. Now, one of the things we also work with athletes on is, on whether or not their coaches have higher standards or expectations for them than they have for themselves. And I think sometimes people look at it of like, it's a positive when coaches have these standards and these expectations that are like way higher than the athletes. What I have found is, if an athlete's really going to reach their potential and their expectations and standards are much different than the coaches, it normally means that they're not setting those nearly high enough. So how do you take an athlete that, isn't holding themselves accountable as much as they should, or really dreaming as big as they should be, or expecting as much as they should be out of themselves? How do you help them figure out that it shouldn't be about what I expect, it should be about what you're expecting for yourself?
Yeah, so to go back on the accountability part just a little bit is, so we have mentors and mentees within our program as well. So this is kind of built into that. So when somebody comes into the program, they'll have a junior or senior who's gone through that part of the program already, and they're going to help them, with everything, right? Not just soccer, is, what are the classes to take, maybe, where do the pretty girls hang out, maybe, but like just being a pure mentor that they can always work with and to be accountable to essentially. But what I've found is that, honestly, what the players say and do carries far more weight than what me as a coach does, So if the pulling and the prodding is coming from the coach, I don't think we'll ever really get that far. But if you have players that have belief, if you have players that understand, why they're doing it, and that's, something as Simon Sinek says it, that, nobody buys your what, they buy your why. So players have to understand, well, what's in it for them, So if they come into Oxy or any program, why should they adopt the models that we have, in our servant leadership? We have our mindset is so important. It's one of our pillars. Integrity is one of our pillars. So you have all these things, like, why should they do all of those things? Leaving a legacy is the fourth pillar. Why should they do all those things? So I think once they understand that, okay, this makes sense. So why do I want to become a better person, human being down the road, And so it's crazy to think that sometimes they actually don't even want that, It's like, why should I pass the ball? We'll use a simpler example. Well, because ultimately it can help you score more goals if you pass the ball more, in certain areas. You don't have to hold the ball the whole time. So, just having them understand the why, and then having players that have been in the program helping them. And when it comes from the players, I mean, my goodness, you see us fly and do miracles because of that. So we work hard on the communication part, and then again, that helps them, the players, they then set their own standards. So what I've seen over the years that I've been at Oxy that we've grown is the players so we have a culture book. So I had a culture book that was started, it was about 11 or 12 pages. I had a little bit every year, just kind of tweak some things, but the players, the seniors, add pieces to it every year. So now over the years, it's like 50 or 60 pages.
Oh, wow.
It's notes of stuff that all fits into like our pillars, but it's players adding things they want to give to the next generation. Like, hey guys, these are important. So those sections that the players have written are, well, I'd like to think my sections are powerful, but their sections are probably more powerful to the players, and their words. So I think that's what's been the most powerful thing, to be honest, and that's what helped players. They always go above and beyond what I expect. Like, I expect what I think is really high, and the players always say, like, we can do a little bit more. We can do this in a better way, in a different way, and I'm always open to that. So it's been fun to see.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. The way you're talking, it makes me think about different ways that coaches view themselves. And I think some coaches view themselves as like the bus driver. Like, this is my bus. I'm deciding on the direction. I'm in charge. And then I think for other coaches, what they're looking for is to enable and empower their athletes to be the ones driving that bus and the ones that are picking the direction and making it their program. And your role is really just to create the environment for them to take that and make it their own. And I find it really powerful. I think it's difficult to do, but if you can do it with skill, you can have I think a lot of program success with it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard, and it is hard, and it's a daily thing as well. I mean, to be honest, it's not just like, we put this book together and then we never talk about it. It is something that, I've had to evolve, as well over the years. And honestly, I learned it really by falling on my face in the first couple of years. I mean, that's how you learn, I mean, like, just by like resenting the players, like not resenting me, but like me pushing them hard and them not really being a part of it. Like, well, I want to be a part of it, coach, and that kind of helped me after those first couple of years. So it's been a process. I wasn't born this way. I had to get punched in the face with a team that went 3-16, 3-16-1, something like that, for me to feel like, what, something needs to change, obviously. So I'm probably a little bit more hard-headed than most. Some coaches might know that earlier. It took me a little bit.
Well, one, I think it would be really boring if we are as good as we're ever going to be when we're born, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do for 30, 40 years if you're already as good as you need to be?
Yeah, exactly.
And I love the emphasis on, I'm gonna learn through my mistakes. And one of the quotes that we use a lot is, the wind will blow out a candle, but it makes a bonfire burn hotter, right? And those of us that learn from those mistakes and that like really prize it ourselves and like, I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm always improving. I'm going to fall forward. I'm not going to fall back. I think it really enables us to get closer to our full potential. Because, I mean, we're all going to make mistakes. There's no coach out there that's perfect. There's no player that's perfect. Really thinking about ourselves as needing to be a perfect being, I think, sets us up for failure. And instead, putting ourselves in a zone where I'm just going to focus on improvement. And I know that losses sometimes are the best lessons that I can have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a thing in our culture book that it's like, it says love making, and it's fun, and then mistakes. So kind of like catch their eye, but it's like love making mistakes. And it because you don't learn without those parts of the puzzle. I mean, they say amateurs fail 5 times less than pros. So that means professionals are failing more often than amateurs. So what does that mean? It means they're just trying harder stuff. They're just trying more stuff, and they're just okay with that. So we have a couple things on that, but I mean, with anchoring things where, they'll kind of like flush the toilet or do some things and just, okay, so you made a mistake. Just let's move on. We got it. We got feedback, and let's progress from there. That's been really, I think, liberating for a lot of guys. All right, I missed a shot. Okay, I kicked it over. I get it. I wanted to score, and we all know that, right? But okay, point your toe down. Whatever it is. So that's been kind of a fun process of seeing like it's okay to make mistakes. And then we talk about failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a step on the way to success. Not trying is the opposite of success, at least for us, And so if you're failing, that's good. That means you're on the step to success or on the road to success. So, I think just having players understand that, because they're all high achievers, guys who come in and women who come into college sports, they're all probably pretty high achievers. That's why they're there at some level. And they're not really used to being maybe not the best player, or maybe they're not used to failing as much at the next level. And they have to kind of overcome that. So, that's a big part of the mental side that we work on too. And took this from Tim Lenahan at Northwestern, and he was talking about how players came from they were exceptional in an average world. And then when they go to college, they're going to an exceptional environment, but now they're average. And dealing with people, how can they become exceptional people in an exceptional world is the big leap that they have to be mentally ready to engage with. So, we like to help players with that and understand that.
Yeah, and I think it's super common across all sports and all levels. Those two, mindset pitfalls of, one, getting down on ourselves too much when we make mistakes, right? I think all of us have probably fallen into that at some point. And then two, the way we define success and failure, and for us, we're really big on, success can look very different for different people. Failure can look very different for different people. And it's going into a game. And as a young player, it may be I may only get 5 minutes to play. And in that 5 minutes, it's I don't need to score a goal. I'm just going to make sure I'm going to receive those passes well, and I'm going to move it on up the field. I'm going to pass it over to the next person. If I'm on defense, I'm going to slow them down, right? I don't have to do everything myself. And helping athletes see that success and failure can be much more specific, and it's going to look different at different times of your career is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what other mental mistakes do you think a lot of athletes make, either during that transition or just during, soccer games that hold them back from improvement?
Yeah, boy, this could be a long list or short one. I mean, it's certainly all on the mental side, I think. But what are some things that I think players struggle with? I guess one is like we talked about a little bit is the outcomes versus the things you can control, right? I think just we didn't win the game, or I didn't complete the pass, but that's to a degree external. Is focusing on how did you position your foot, how did you position your body, did you open up appropriately, did you check, did you skate, all those things, those are controllable. So just focusing on the controllable aspects, I think, and a lot of times players don't do that. They just look at, did we win, did we lose, did I play, did I not play? To the point that you said earlier is, well, what about those 5 minutes? Did I run as hard as I could for those 5 minutes? That's a win. That's what it takes. Just compete for 5 minutes, and things like that. So just focusing on the controllables a little bit. I think they don't do that. The failure part, I think, is an important thing. I think being mindful is another thing we found. And, we saw in a study that 90% of the time they're not actually mindful in the present. It's something like 60% is in the past, 30% is in the future, and only 10% is there. So if they're going to shoot or take a penalty kick, they're thinking about, okay, what happens if I miss? Or, I missed last week, or this and that, when, they should be mindful here. What does my step look like? What does my breath look like? So I think just the lack of mindfulness in the present, I think, is something that players miss as well. And you continue to remind them, hey, be present here. This is important in this moment. Yesterday doesn't really matter, nor does whatever you think could happen after, just focusing here. Something we talk about in our program as well is it's not a dog eat dog world. It's a dog feed dog world. So, it's you're not competing against your teammate and hoping he messes up. You're helping him be better, and he's helping you be better, so we can both be better. And that kind of just understanding that part, especially in college, because I think a lot of times people undercut each other sometimes because, well, they hope that guy messes up so they can play more, or they don't want to mess up. So whatever the case may be, but just it's dog feed dog. It's not dog eat dog, and I think that's been a thing that I think players sometimes think well, I got to compete against that player to play, and I hope he messes up, when, that's probably one of the worst things you can do. I think. I think players got to remember their why, is because they say if a player verbalizes, something negative, it's far more likely to happen. But if they can actually just kind of maybe state a fact, but continue to make that either neutral or positive thinking, how much more beneficial that'll be. The automatic negative thoughts come to mind. It's how do you crush your ants, right? And I'm sure you've heard that plenty of times. And there's a lot of just dealing with those automatic negative thoughts as well. And we don't have to go into the details of that too much. And I think also players maybe don't visualize enough. I think we do a lot of visualization stuff in our program. seeing what it looks like before it actually happens and controlling the narrative. So I think until they get older, players miss out on that. And we try to get them there pretty early on the visualization part and seeing what does your future look like. And the best way to create your future is ultimately to visualize it. And then you can walk into that. Those are some. I think honestly, honest to God, there's probably more, but it's all really down to the mental side.
Yeah, it's a huge part, and I think they did a study with Olympic athletes a few years ago, and I think 95% of them used visualization.
Yep.
Which is probably one of the most underutilized mental skills and it's so simple and it's so easy.
Yeah.
And like some of us stumble upon it, some of us are taught it directly. I mean, for me, I always said I wrestled at every state or national tournament 1,000 times before I did it in person. Like I was there every single day in my head. Going through what it was going to look like, what was it going to feel like, what was it going to sound like.
Totally.
And it really helps your confidence and really helps your ability to be able to be in that moment and not let the pressure, the pressure and the moment overwhelm you. Because I think sometimes you get in these situations and athletes have these goals, like, yeah, I want to be at the national championship. And then they get there and it's like they hadn't really fully prepared themselves for that moment. And then they get so overwhelmed they can't play well.
Sure.
And putting yourself in it enough so it just feels like another normal day, I think is really, really powerful. But I would agree with all those different points. We call it present moment, staying in that present moment, not living in the past, not living in the future. Just I'm going to deal with what's going on right now. The other two ways I've heard it put well is, play where your feet are, right? Yeah. Just worry about where your feet are. Or, in golf, a lot of times they'll say, stay in your lane, right? Like you got your plan, you got your lane, stay in it. Don't worry about what else might happen. Yeah. So a bunch of very, very important mental areas. Now, for you, if there was an athlete that came to you and said, I know the mental side is important, what would be some recommendations for somebody that wants to improve mentally that, as a young player, what would be some recommendations you make for how they could do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably go over some of those things that we spoke about before. Another topic that comes to mind for us is we talk about the warrior's path versus the winner's path. And so like how we visualize that is, we would say if two people are racing in practice, like somebody might cut the corner by 3 inches or something and he'll win the race. That's like the winner's path. Whereas like the warrior's path would be like get to the line, maybe even get a little bit behind the line. So you get a little bit more. So because eventually, you'll beat that player in the race that counts, So is I think just doing things like that where you're focused on winning your race, so it's not about winning the race. Yeah, it's about winning your race and keeping that always in the back of your mind. So, another visual that we talk about our guys with that specifically is, so imagine if you're looking at like from the sideline, people are racing. So from one goal to the other, so from one end line to the other. And, you'd say, all right, so if everybody takes off from one goal, so the first like 60 yards until about half field, obviously like the elite athletes are at the front, but it's still pretty close. Everybody more or less is probably within 6 or 7 yards for those first 60 yards. And then like what happens usually the last 60 yards is then the gap widens tremendously. So the first people will win by 20 or 30 yards because like the people in the back they gave up. They didn't think they could win that race again, that moment. And it's not about winning that race, right? It's can you just give your best, because your best is required in all those moments so you can catch up. And then I talk to the people in the front and I say, okay, well, maybe you won that race, but you know what? I bet the last 10 yards you didn't sprint. I bet the last 10 yards you cruised the last 10 yards. Well, that's not good enough either because maybe that's not your peer set. That's not the race either. You have a bigger race to run. So, understanding that improvement becomes the goal and you're measuring yourself against yourself in a lot of respects. And so, trying to win your race instead of the race is a big part of that. I also think players, that and I always try to remind them have more integrity. And I know it sounds crazy because I mean have integrity with yourself. And I talk to my guys about that is if you told your friend you'd pick him up at the airport at 9 o'clock, you'll be there, 10 out of 10. You'll never leave that guy on the hook. Probably not. I mean, if you're a good friend, or I'm going to help you with the dorms or whatever. But if you tell yourself I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow and work out, it's probably 50-50. or 65, 65-35, right? And like, that's a lack of integrity if you tell yourself, that, look, this is what I'm going to do, and you don't do it. So it's the same way. So I think just those two parts probably go together, is just have integrity with yourself, more integrity. Do what you're going to say and commit to that. There's like a philosopher as well. It's like, but whatever. It's life is the C between the B and the D, right? So life are your choices between your birth and your death. That's what life is, right? It's the C between the B and the D. So what choices are you going to make? Everything is based on your choice. And if you want to look at, where your life is today, look at the choices you made yesterday. If you want to see what your life is going to be like tomorrow, look at your choices today. Yeah. So being mindful of those things as well. So, I think it goes back to the mindfulness, but I would just use some of those examples of those things, for those players.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I think one of the big things that sounds like we're both proponents of is like, you can't just think about improvement and like grow your mindset. It comes down to actions, right? Like, it's like, have that integrity. It's not just, oh, I'm going to do X. It's like, I'm going to follow through with that. It's not just, oh, I understand that it's not just about winning. It's about improvement. Then you got to run every sprint like that. You got to play every game like that. And when we start to like have the action, that's I think where the mental side, starts to improve. And it's not always even physical, but like we have to find ways to actually do something in order to improve it. The same way as, I could think all day about, lifting weights. I'm not getting stronger until I pick them up. Right. And like, we got to find those activities that are going to help that mindset continue to grow.
Sure. And it's daily action. And it's not like, look, if you go to the gym one day, you're not going to be buff, like you have to eat well, and you have to sleep well, and you have to drink water, and you have to do it again. And then you have to do it tomorrow, and all those things. So, it's like taking action as well. Every day, taking action toward that.
Yeah, 100%.
Even if it's a little, progress is progress. Little.
Yeah, 1%. I always say the most dangerous athlete is the one that gets 1% better every day.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't need to jump 10%. Just every single day make that progress. And that's why I think right now it's so important that athletes and teams stay focused, because this is chaos. And like, I use the Game of Thrones line from Littlefinger. Chaos is a ladder for some people to climb. And like, there are going to be players, there are going to be teams that use this time as like, we're going to buckle down and do things right. And they're going to come out better than they were before. And there's going to be those people that were at the top that didn't do it, and they're going to slip. Yeah. And in these moments, like you said, it comes down to those choices that you make. And if you're making the right choices now, it's gonna be reflected when that season happens.
Oh yeah, for sure. This can be a great time for individuals, if they really use it and maximize it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like personally, I've been running like a madman. I'm training for a marathon next year, and trying to qualify for Boston, and I have been killing the miles because there's so many less distractions. So
totally. Is this going to be your first marathon, or you've done a couple?
I've done one before. So this time I'm shooting for under 3. That's the qualifying time, under 3 hours. So
yeah, nice. No, I've done the LA Marathon a couple of times, and it's a nice run. It feels good. So awesome. Congratulations. It's right at the end when you finish, it's like, oh, I'm never going to do that again. But then like, then that time passes, and then you want to do it again,
Yeah, so. You do.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Rod, I really appreciate you coming on today. Any last points you want to make before we finish up here?
Yeah, I just want to, remind certainly athletes is just remember, know what you want, strive to get better, and stay focused on that, and be tough, and understand there's going to be roadblocks, and that's okay. And how you choose to use them, stumbling blocks versus roadblocks or stepping stones, and use them that way. And then the last piece is just, try to remember how you also want people to remember you, also when you're doing things. So, that will help with the integrity part. I think we talk about, again, the last piece is, hey, you know what, how do you want people to feel around you, and all this, keep that in mind, as well. So I would just add those pieces as well, because we didn't really talk about them too much. But we're still blessed no matter what's going on in the world right now. Always remember that you're blessed. Take advantage of every day, and, let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, 100%. Have that gratitude for the good things in life and the good people around you. And, there's going to always be hardships that pop up, And people that are able to be grateful for the good things are those that are going to be able to push past it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Rod. I really enjoyed it. And I wish you guys all the best, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother. All right. Take care. Good luck on the marathon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.